Hi everyone, how are you? I hope you're having a great week. So today is Thursday. I spent Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday working on a wedding dress and some other orders that I had to work on. So today I'm back in the studio. It's already the afternoon. If you watched last week's vlog, I told you how I went for my very first mammogram because I was getting old. So I had that done last Monday. And then I had a phone call on Monday to tell me that they wanted to take another one because there was a little shadow on one of my breasts that they wanted to just investigate a little bit further. So I spent this morning at Breast Screen ACT. Amazing service. It's all free, it's all fast, it's just incredible. So I was there at crack of dawn this morning. They took some 3D mammograms of the area in the breast that they could see the little shadow in. And they did an ultrasound and everything's fine, thank God. So it was something that's just normal for me. There's nothing to be concerned of. It was just something to do with my breast tissue. It overlapped in the original mammogram, so there's nothing there. So it's been, even though I knew it would probably be all right, it's been a little bit of an anxious couple of days. But I thought now would just be a good time to urge anyone out there with breasts to make sure you check them regularly. So obviously I'm lucky today, but a lot of people aren't so lucky whatever their age. So just check your breasts regularly and don't hesitate to go and see your GP if you think there's anything unusual or weird. And if you live somewhere where you are offered free breast mammograms, just take up and do it regularly. And yeah, it's a wonderful initiative that here in Australia. So I don't know what there is in other countries for similar, but yeah, really impressed with their service. Really happy that I was given the all clear and could leave and there was nothing sinister or horrible going on inside. So yeah, it was it's an eye-opener. It makes you think about things. Checking my breasts is definitely something that I've been a bit blasé and slack about in the past, but going forward it's something I will check a lot more regularly and make sure I go for my regular mammograms. Anyway, back to day. So yeah, I was there for a good few hours this morning while they were really thoroughly checking everything over. I'm home now, I've had some lunch, and I am back working on Jazida's corset body today. So she's back in tomorrow morning for her next fitting, so I am making the third toile. So the first thing I'm going to do is just transfer my pattern from last time onto some new pattern paper, and then mark all the changes. So once I've transferred it, I'll show you all the changes I'm going to mark and how I'm going to do that. And then the other big change we're making is that we're going to add, I've been and bought a bra. We're going to use the back of this bra at the bottom of the body, partly because that stretch should hopefully make it fit a little bit better, and partly because then it should be a little bit easier to do up. And this one, I picked one that's got 3 hooks and then 3 sets of hooks there. So it is a little bit adjustable as well, so Jazida can sort of get it to the right fit and elasticy size and comfort level for her when she's wearing it. So this was, I think it cost me $15 at Big W for this bra. So I'm going to cut the back off. The cups, it's a really nice strapless bra, so I'm going to keep these cups. What size did I buy? I bought a 12D, so I'll keep these cups. Again, they'll go in my stash and get used for something in the future. And then after Jazida's been for her fitting tomorrow morning, I'm going to start working on the corset to go with the tulle skirt, so the Fortuna gown corset. So really hoping to get that done this weekend if time allows. And the other thing I'm doing this afternoon is I'm going to go and vote. So it's the election here on Saturday in Australia. It's the first time I've voted since I've got my Australian citizenship. I've decided to go and do it early just because I find the polling booths, I know from seeing it, not that I've voted here before, but from seeing it, it's just so overwhelming with all the people there and all the people still campaigning there, and I just can't cope with that. So I'm going to go and vote early this afternoon and get it done, hopefully in a quieter, less scary environment. And I've just fixed my tripod. So I couldn't use my tripod last week because the bit of rubber that was here had come off, so my phone kept popping out of it. So I've just run a bit of hot glue along there, and it's got enough depth and enough sort of stickiness that my phone's holding back in. So Hot glue is just brilliant. So I have a working tripod again, which makes me very happy. Okay, so I've drawn my pattern from last time, and I've drawn all the alterations that needed to be done from the last toile fitting. So if we start here, so this is the side back seam, which needed to come in quite a lot, and it needed to shorten around here from the hip. So I've taken it in here and here, and then I've shortened it here, but then because the way I've pinned it, I like the length here, but that's a lot shorter, so I've kind of met in the middle a bit. So I drew it short, and then I've drawn it back a little bit longer as well, so that comes to there. I've shortened here and the front and the back to allow for adding the hooks from the bra on there. So also it was too big here, so I've actually narrowed the back, so that's my center back now, minus my seam allowance, so that will be 1/2 inch seam allowance on there. And then I've taken some off the top as well, because I wanted the lacing just to be a little bit wider. So that'll be sort of the finished width there. So the elastic part with the hooks on a join on here, and then I think I'm going to cut this line. And again, I can just tweak this a tiny bit at the last fitting, but you can see how much we've lost on that bit that comes over the bum there. Really depends on your shape. So people with bigger butts or curvier butts, you might need to keep that. So this is one of those things that I think it's really hard. I can explain what I'm doing for Jazida for her body, but it's going to vary so much for everybody. So then at the front, we're actually adding a zip in the center front, so Jazida can take it on and off on stage easier. So we need to just bring it in a tiny bit there. So I've actually just narrowed it here just by that much, and then I've added my seam allowance for the zip all down the center front. And then this part that was coming up around the leg was just far too low, so I've narrowed this part and again shortened it to there to allow for where the elastic from the bra and the hook's going to go. And then I've shortened it up to the hip seam, so we're losing all of this, so it's going to come up in that curve there, and then that's the side part over the hip. Also, when I looked at the pictures, it was just still a little bit too big on the bust, so I've just narrowed this side front panel just a tiny bit as well. So this will be toile 3, and fingers crossed this is close enough that any small tweaks I can just do without another toile. So I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to cut out, as I did for this, a layer of calico basted to a layer of that lovely strong satin that I've got here at the minute. And then I'll show you how I actually sew my toiles together once I've got all that cut out and basted. So my new corset pieces are all cut out. So I've got just the satin basted to some calico. You want to pick quite strong fabrics for doing this. You want something without a stretch to it. So both of these have no stretch going this way, so you don't want any stretch around the waist. So the idea is to make a sort of a corset that doesn't stretch and is properly boned to try on, but without the work of doing it as you would do it for the real thing. So once I've got that, what I do is then I stitch right sides together and stitch my seam allowance, and then I stitch it open. So I just do, can you see that? I just do a line of stitching down next to the seam, and then I stitch in my bone casing. Then I insert my boning just between the satin and the calico. So on the outside it looks quite neat. On the inside it looks like that. So it's pretty rough on the inside. You've got all the seam allowance flapping over, and then you can see the boning in between the two layers there. And then I stitch all the bones in place inside the boning channels. Otherwise, if you don't stitch them in place, the satin or the fabric you're using can gather up and you won't get a sort of a true idea of what the fit's like. And then I always do a line of stitching around the edge just to stop anything like this part on the bias from stretching as you're trying it on. And at the back, to lace it up, I turn the seam allowance back at the back and stitch it in place, put a piece of boning in, and then I just do a second line of stitching and then just use my awl to make holes, and those holes just punch through both layers are strong enough just to lace up a toile. So it's a little bit time consuming, but it's definitely worth doing properly and doing accurately, so that you know what adjustments you need to make to your pattern before you make your real thing. If there's a lot of adjustments to make, I always do another toile and just make sure I'm absolutely 100% happy with the fit before I start cutting it and making it in the real fabrics. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then Jazida will be here in the morning to try it on. So I did pick up my new glasses today, so I now have these cute little glasses for helping me with, that looks weird looking at the screen because they're reading glasses, so for close up. So this is going to make life a lot easier when I'm doing close-up sewing. So, and yeah, they're super cute. I don't actually mind. I thought I'd be really grumpy that I had to have glasses because I'm getting older, but I don't mind at all. And it really makes a difference, especially I'm out here now. It's quite late, and it's quite dark and I'm sewing, even with all my lights on. They definitely do help. So I'm really happy with those. And I went and voted as well, so I've got that done, so I don't have to stress about going to the polling stations on Saturday when it's all busy and a bit hectic. It was quite busy. There was still that line of the candidates, or the representatives of the candidates, shoving the paperwork in your hand as you go in, which I find quite makes me a little bit anxious. But I did it. It's all done. I voted for my first time as an Australian citizen, and yeah, we'll find out on Saturday who gets in. I'm really hoping that the people who are voted in are people who take climate change seriously, unlike our current government. So fingers crossed that, yeah, we'll see some positive changes for the future of Australia and for the future of our planet. But that's as political as I'm going to get. I'm not going to say who I voted for or who I hate, but yeah, I'd really like to see a government in power who actually takes climate change seriously and isn't afraid to make some really bold and difficult decisions that will be in the best interest of future generations and keeping this planet alive for them. So the new toile is all done. So this is the front. So this time I've got the centre front seam, which opens into the zip. So it should be nice and easy to get on and off, and it unzips right down to there, so it should make it really easy to get on and off, so Jazida can take it off on stage when she uses it in a performance. Then I've got the back of the bra on the bottom with the hooks, which is just giving that little bit of stretch. It's hard to tell if that's too long or not, but we can alter that tomorrow. That's easy. So that's my front, and then that's the back. So I've got the boning stopping a lot higher than before. So while it looks hard to get on, because we've got the zip opening all the way down at the front, we can actually get away with it. So we don't need to loosen the laces off nearly as much as if there was no front opening. So hopefully that will be fine to get into. And the shape at the back's looking really good. So lost a lot of fabric from the last toile. So hopefully that will sit nicely around her bum this time and be a good shape and a good height. So that's it. It's all ready to try on tomorrow morning. So Jazida's back, and we're trying on the third toile of the corset body that we've been making and fitting over the last few weeks, and I think we're pretty much there with the fit now. So it's giving an absolutely awesome shape to your waist. That cinch is just brilliant. I love it. I love it. And then I just had to add a tiny bit of fabric at the front just to get that curve sitting right just at the top of the leg. Happy with the bust, happy with how the zip works, and you've had a little play, like see, make sure you can get it on and off for performances. And then at the back, so this is the fit at the back and over the bum now. So last time it was too big and I had to pin all that excess fabric in, but I'm really happy with this shape now. I just need to tweak this centre back seam a tiny bit, but apart from that we're good to go in the right fabrics. And oh, I had a million more crystals arrive the other day as well. So
yes,
got so many crystals. So I can't wait to get started on. It's going to be black satin and then embellished with all those purple sequins and some other purple lace and crystals, and it's going to be really sparkly, really sparkly. Yes. And then there's all the other bits to go with it, like the boots and the jacket and the headpiece. So I better get busy. Next, I'm going to make the pattern for the lace corset that's going with the Fortuna dress. So I've drawn a copy of the corset pattern that I use for the floral dress because it's really close to what I want. The top half is all exactly how I want it, so I've left that. The only thing I've done is taken an inch off the centre back because I want it to just pull in a little bit tighter than Flora did on me. Then I've taken the waist in just at the side seam just to get a really exaggerated curve there. Then at the centre front I want it to come into a point. So the straight line here is what the floral dress was. So I've dropped the centre front down a little bit longer into a point, and then it comes up shorter, so it's quite short between the waist and the bottom of the corset on the hip because I want that lovely puff of tulle to come out from there. So that's the other side, and then it's just going to curve down slightly as we come to the centre back, and then it's just going to finish in a nice curve at the centre back here. So it's going to curve up over the hip and then curve down into this point at the front. So I'm going to cut this out, draw a copy of the pattern, and then I'm just going to make up a really quick toile. I'm not going to do a thorough toile as I did for Jazida. I'm literally just going to put the calico together. So here's my toile on the mannequin with the skirt. There's no boning in it, but you can get the idea of how it's going to look. So what we're aiming for is this lovely tiny nipped in waist that then comes out really quickly into this big puff of tulle. I'm really happy with the fit. The only alterations I want to make is just to make that part a tiny bit shorter, and to make it a tiny bit shorter there, and I might even do that point just a little bit longer so it just sits right down into the tulle at the front there. But that's the sort of shape we're getting at the waist. What I find when you're doing dresses in this style, especially because this one's T-length rather than full length, if you end up with a really long bodice and the puff of the skirt starting lower on the hips, it can make your legs look really short. So you'd be really careful with proportion. Whereas when the skirt starts really soon just below the waist, not far below the waist, you're keeping your torso quite short, which keeps your legs nice and long. There's a lot of rules saying that short people can't wear big skirts like this and it makes them look even shorter. But as long as you get the proportion of the top right and that length between the waist and the start of the puff of the skirt right, then you can get away with it, definitely. It's not just a style for tall people. Excellent. So now I'm happy with that. I'm just going to mark the changes on my pattern, make a copy of it because this is a shape that I'll use again in the future for sure. And I'm going to get everything cut out and ready to sew. So this is the corset together with all the boning in and the bias binding on, and that's how it's looking with the skirt. It's not sitting properly because it's not laced up. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So tomorrow afternoon I'll be able to start putting the lace on and working out the pattern for the cape, which I'm very excited about. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching the vlog. I'll be back next week.